So welcome everyone. Happy Friday morning. The Housing Action Coalition feels really fortunate to host this amazing panel of experts about what safety looks like on the construction site. So the Housing Action Coalition, when the shelter-in-place order went into effect, just about a month ago, we as a staff, we're constantly thinking about a lot of the complications that come along with this order, specifically along the lines of that not everyone, as we know, unfortunately, not everyone has shelter, right? And so what do we do to shelter in place? How does one shelter in place without shelter? And, it's generally accepted that in the United States, there's a shortage of 7 million units of housing. Right? And in California, unfortunately, we own 50% of that shortage. So 3.5, it's generally something we have 3.5 missing units of housing to fill the need of what's used. And so, I think these problems that we kind of in the housing world see every day, the COVID-19 epidemic, the emergency really kind of brought these to a head. And so we as staff and we as an organization, we're really asking, how do we continue to not fall further behind? How do we provide shelter? How do we continue to build shelter for people who need it safely? And can we do it safely? And so we started to reach out to, our members, to the building trades, to the carpenters, to general contractors, and to ask these questions, can we do this? Can we continue to do this safely? The last thing we want to do is fall further behind. And we were really happy to find out that, our members in labor and on the general contractor side were putting amazing processes in place to be able to do construction safely. So we thought that this would be really important to kind of share with the public kind of what these steps are being taken. Education is power. And so that was kind of the idea behind this. So I just want to do a quick around the horn as to everyone who was here, and so and who will be speaking, and then I'm going to turn it over to the panel, and we will be able to take questions from the audience after the presentation. So we have with us Lori Dunn, who is the operations manager at Swinnerton. Thank you for being here, Lori. We have Mike DiNapoli, who's the general manager of Northern California at Suffolk Construction. Mike, good to see you.
Good morning.
We have Cassie Halaski. I hope I got that right, Cassie. She's the director of environmental and health safety at Nibby Brothers. Paul, I believe Paul Ahorn. I saw him earlier. Maybe he dropped off, but hopefully he'll come back. He's the counsel for the Construction Employers Association. And we have Cindy Sato, who is the safety manager for the Construction Employers Association. Did I get everything right? Did I miss anything there? All right. So I think what we're going to start with is I think that we're going to ask Cassie and Cindy to kind of do, and I believe Cassie, you have a presentation for everyone on kind of what are the steps that Nibby Brothers and other GCs have been taking to make construction on to make safety on the construction site a priority, and the steps you're taking to make it safe. So Cassie, please take over from here.
All right, thank you, Todd. Yeah, so when our job sites and our workers were deemed essential, we really had to think through how do we step up to the plate and make sure that the job sites remain safe for our workers, especially during a global pandemic. And I must admit, it hasn't been easy, but we have added extra staff to cover extra roles and implemented lots and lots of preventative measures to take all the necessary steps to ensure the safety and health of our workforce. And I think Nibby and other general contractors in the Bay Area have done an amazing job to actually step up to the plate and be able to do what needs to be done in order to keep these workers safe. So I'm going to cover some of the key measures that we've all taken. First, disinfection. So disinfecting the job sites is obviously a very important piece. We have a full-time laborer on every job site whose sole job is to disinfect all commonly touched areas throughout the day. And so they go around all day, every day, and they wipe down the handrails on all the stair towers, the ladders being used as common access egress points, the portable toilet door handles and knobs, both inside and out, the access doors and gates throughout the job sites, the tabletops and seating areas for any break areas that are established, and then the man hoist area as well. In fact, with the man hoist area, we're actually encouraging our workers to take the stairs as much as possible. But when they do need to use the man hoist, usually to transport materials, we have limited the number of people that are actually allowed to be in the man hoist to maintain social distancing as much as possible, which is crucial during this situation. We also have at least one hand washing station near every job site entrance, in addition to all the hand washing stations that are located near portable toilets. And we have signage at each and every one of these hand washing stations reminding the workers of how you actually need to wash your hands and for how long. We all know now 20 seconds, which is longer than any of us ever imagined, but we have those reminders. And not only at the hand washing stations, but we have reminders throughout the job sites to remind all of our workers about social distancing, maintaining 6 feet, about hand washing and how to do it, about all the personal hygiene measures they have to take, about staying home when sick, reminding them when and how to wear their cloth face masks, etc. The disinfection person disinfects the job site all day, every day, but he also makes sure that these postings remain in place and are replenished when they get torn or damaged. And he also makes sure that all the rest of the supplies on the job site dealing with COVID-19 measures are maintained. And so we're talking about hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes, disinfecting solution, soaps, nitrile gloves, the cloth face masks. He is making sure that those supplies don't falter. So one of the more recent developments from CDC was a recommendation to wear cloth face masks. And so at NIBI, we have actually issued a cloth face mask to every worker on every job site, but with strict instructions that social distancing is still the primary #1 protection against exposure to COVID-19. However, in construction, there are certain tasks that you simply cannot maintain 6-foot distance. For example, raising a wall into place together or installing a large window. You have to be within 6 feet distance of other workers at times. During those times, we instruct the workers to make sure that they wear their cloth face masks. But at all other times, they really need to maintain the 6-foot distance, which we remind them throughout the day to do. Another thing that we're doing is that every morning, every crew leader has to fill out what we call a health survey. But it's not just checking the health of their workers. They also have to go through a list of reminders every day for their workers of all the COVID-19 measures that are in place, reminding them about social distancing again, and their cloth face masks and hand washing, etc. And then they go through a list of questions in terms of identifying if there's any workers who aren't feeling 100% well that day. And we've actually found this to be very effective, in which some of the workers occasionally will say, well, you know what, now that you asked, I do have a sore throat, or I do have a runny nose. And so then we say, well, you know what, we want you to stay home for at least 72 hours so we can monitor that. So we can make sure that we know, is that just a cold or is that a potential COVID-19 situation? And so those health surveys have really helped us to keep potential cases off the job site to ensure the safety of everyone on the job site. In addition to those health surveys, the crews have to complete a pre-test plan every morning. And so as I referenced with social distancing not always being able to maintain with every task, the crew has to actually identify every morning which tasks they can't maintain the social distancing to remind the workers, this is when you will definitely have to wear your cloth face mask. Now, Most of the workers are actually choosing to wear their cloth face masks all day, every day, and that is fine with us. But we really want to make sure that they understand when it's absolutely necessary, because the social distancing is first and foremost to keep them as protected as possible. So this paperwork they're having to do in the morning, pre-COVID, we used to just have everyone signed in and then they turn in the piece of paper. Well, under COVID-19 situation, that's obviously an opportunity for exposure and transmission of germs. And so in today's world, what we do is we have the crew leader actually do his whole process verbally. His crews have a maximum of 10 people, no more than that. And then he makes sure that they're socially distanced during the morning huddle, so to speak. But then he checks them in verbally. No one signing in, sharing pens, sharing paper. And then instead of turning that piece of paper into the general contractor, that crew leader takes a picture and texts or emails it. So now everything's digital, eliminating that possibility for transfer of germs. Another key measure that we've implemented is that every job site now has a full-time COVID-19 monitor. This person does nothing else but monitor that the COVID-19 measures are in place. They start their morning by checking with every crew. Is the health survey complete? Are the social distancing measures identified in their pre-task plan? Has everyone been reminded of the COVID-19 measures for the day? Once he completes that round of check-ins with the crews, then he spends the rest of the day walking the job site to remind the workers about social distancing. Maintaining 6 foot distance from people, I'm sure you all have experienced, is not the most natural human behavior on the planet. And so we've really found it beneficial to have a full-time person walking the job site to remind workers 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet. And then in those tasks where that 6 feet can't be maintained for the safety of the workers in terms of lifting heavy objects together, for example, that COVID monitor reminds them to make sure that they have their face masks on. He's also looking for signs and symptoms of illness because, you know, maybe a guy checked in fine that morning. He felt perfectly fine, but sometimes the cold symptoms appear in the middle of the day. And so he is on the lookout for any cold symptoms that may develop during the day so we can get those symptoms off the job site as soon as possible. And then finally, we have implemented temperature scans as well. So our workers are lined up, markers 6 feet on the ground to make sure that they maintain social distancing in line, but they're lined up in the morning to get their temperatures taken. And this is, in my opinion, more of a secondary measure to the health surveys, because the health surveys are really our first line of defense to asking the workers how they feel. But given that fever is one of the early indicators, and sometimes people don't realize they have a low-grade fever, this has been a secondary measure that we've taken to ensure that we're identifying any potential fevers on the job sites before they get on the job site, right? And we're actually happy to report that at NIBI, we have actually not had any high fevers yet. And I think that's because of two things. One, we're communicating so well with the workforce, stay home if you're sick. And secondly, the health surveys, checking with the workforce first thing in the morning if they have any signs of illness, that they return home before they even get through the temperature scan. So those two measures have really helped to keep the healthy people able to come to work without exposure to any signs or symptoms of cold or flu. That's a general overview of many of the measures that we're taking. I can say that I'm very, very proud of my company and other companies throughout the Bay Area in terms of being able to really step up to the plate and be confident that we are doing everything we can to keep our workers safe. And with that, I will pass it on to the next speaker.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cassie. That was great. So Cindy, it would be great if you could just kind of tell the audience a little bit about the Construction Employers Association, Other people might not be as familiar with it. And if you have anything to kind of add to some, I mean, Cassie gave like a great presentation, but if there's anything you can add to that as to what safety is looking like on the job site across the industry, that would be fantastic. And you're on mute right now, Cindy. I don't know if it's on you. I think it's on your side. There you go. Oh, no. There you go.
Okay. Well, thank you
Perfect.
for inviting CEA to participate. The Construction Employers Association is a trade association of more than 100 unionized general building contractors performing work in Northern California. Collectively, they employ about 15,000 employees annually. So we've devoted a lot of resources to informing our members and keeping them up to date. We've also had great success with Cassie. She's one of our safety committee members. The safety committee has been sharing information, sharing ideas, exchanging best practices amongst themselves. The association has also put out a sample social distancing protocol for building construction. It amends Appendix A, which is part of the shelter-in-place Bay Area orders, but it's specific to construction. So it has the signage that's required. It reminds vendors and employees before they enter the job site if they're feeling sick or they have a fever to not come onto the premises. It requires that 6 feet of social distancing be maintained, that physical contact be avoided. It lists high touch areas that Cassie already mentioned, the stairs, stair towers, personnel hoists, areas that frequently are touched that need to be disinfected more regularly. Also talks about PPE when you can't maintain the social distancing, and not sharing of food or water bottles, and avoiding ride sharing unless they're members living in the same household as you. And then we also distributed a sample exposure prevention, preparedness, and response plan for construction. So this is more detailed than the sample social distancing program. And a lot of our members have used it to prepare site-specific plans. So most of our members have site-specific COVID plans for each of their projects. Many of them, as Cassie had mentioned, have assigned a specific person who's responsible for implementing and overseeing all of the parameters within the plan. Also, we encourage staggering of meal and rest periods so that the groups are no more than 10 people whenever possible, and that the 6 feet of social distancing is maintained. We really discourage the sharing of tools unless it's not possible. Then they should be disinfected before and after they're used. And then the minimum PPE for everybody are gloves and eye protection. And then, as Cassie mentioned, a lot of our members are moving towards the cloth face coverings. Some of our members are also implementing face shields. And then really it goes back to encouraging the social distancing, and also really encouraging the employees to wash their hands and have good hygiene, and also to change their clothes before they leave the project. And then a couple other things are the staggering of work times, the sequencing of work, and then, as Cassie mentioned, encouraging people to take the stairs. Another measure we've had some members share with us are dedicating one set of stairs for going up and one set of stairs for going down. That way you don't have people passing each other in the stairwell. And then providing PPE to the personnel hoist operator, elevator operator, and ensuring that they're also wiping down and disinfecting their buttons and panel and the enclosed space regularly. Also, CEA has disseminated the Carpenters Training Program, and I know that this online training for COVID-19 has also been adopted by the laborers in California, the operating engineers, and the state building trades.
Great, thank you so much, Cindy. That was great. So, Mike, you're just so you know, you were on mute. So perfect. So I was wondering, could you give us a little insight as to what are things looking like, you know, behind the scenes, not on the job site, like what's happening back at the offices to make sure that all of these programs are in place and being safe?
Hectic, that's for sure. I think that first I want to thank you guys both, Corey and Todd, for reaching out to me and asking me to be on this morning. It was a really good excuse for me to put a collared shirt on for the first time in a month, so I appreciate that. But what we're doing in the office, we're planning, right? We're spending a lot of time planning. So Suffolk has projects, across the country, and in particular, our Boston and New York offices have been hit particularly hard by this. And here in the Bay Area, I feel like we're a yo-yo on, off, depending on, what county health officer decides for the day. We're spending quite a bit of time thinking about not just how to get our jobs started again, but how we're going to be working moving forward into the future, because it's going to change. We're never going to go back to normal. And the first thing that we're doing is we've taken all of our site-specific safety plans, and we have amended them and included all of the COVID-19 procedures that we're putting in place, all of which Cindy and Cassie kind of outlined, generally speaking. And back east, and it appears as if it's going to be a requirement here in San Francisco as well. All those plans are going to need to be submitted to the authority with jurisdiction in some way, shape, form, or another. So we are doing those for all of our projects. We're also asking our trade partners to participate with us on that. So we're asking each of our trade partners to prepare site-specific safety plans that are now modified to include all of the steps that they are taking. Again, many of which were Cindy and Cassie outlined, generally speaking. We too are identifying an individual on our projects that we're calling our COVID safety officer that is outside of our normal safety officer, and doing many of the tasks that Cassie outlined. I think one of the things that is really most exciting to me, and I kind of geek out on quite a bit, is how we're moving forward from an electronic and digital perspective. We use Power BI as an example here for our own employees. So every morning we ask Suffolk employees to check in whether they are working remotely or whether they're working on one of our projects. If they're working on one of our projects, they get from the app, they get the same series of questions that any one of our trade partners would get, or one of the workers that would come onto the job site. And they're required to answer those, and we're able to track that. And by 9 a.m. every day, all of our managers get a report that shows where their employees are actually working, whether they're on a job or remotely. So if you think of that technology, we are in development right now, and we are piloting that on many of our projects, where we will push out to foremen at first, and then eventually all of our trade partners an app that requires them, before they walk onto the job site, to have gone into that app, answered the relevant questions about how they're feeling for the day, and go on to the job site. So we think that's going to be, somewhat of a game changer in the way that we're able to communicate. We've also developed videos that we're calling our, Site Safety Orientation 2.0, and those videos will also be pushed out via app to first foreman and then all the trade partners that are logged in. So they will actually have, on their phones, the ability and the requirement that they, watch a video for 10 minutes that's making sure that all the signage of the steps that they need to take on the jobs are being adhered to. Cindy just mentioned something that we're spending also, I would say the vast majority of my time on the last 2 days is thinking about kind of how you sequence people onto a job site. So we are doing temperature testing on our jobs. And, as an example, down in San Jose, we had about 300 workers we did temperature testing for. And the first day, it took us about an hour and a half to get them through that queue. But if we staggered the start times for the major trades moving forward, that brought that down the second day, to like about 45 minutes or so. So thinking about how you sequence and you stagger starts, and then you bring that into a vertical transportation kind of element, and how you get them up in the man lifts, and all those ideas that were bounced out and we're sharing as an industry are great. Stairwells, some are up, some are down. Once you get onto your floor, we're being asked to go no more than 4 floors, but to make sure you don't take the man lift if you're going less than 4 floors, and keep that free and keep that spaced out. We were even exploring right now, we're talking to Subway about the possibility of catering lunches on floors so that we actually don't have to ask the workers to come down for breaks or their lunch breaks, and creating a space on each of the floors, where our workers feel comfortable. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is not create a police state. We're trying to create a state where our staff and the trade partners are comfortable coming to the jobs every day, knowing that it's actually safer than walking around the streets for sure. And that extends beyond the fence line, right? It extends to us highly recommending that people don't carpool. We've addressed with some of our owners the possibility of even buying blocks of parking that will be different to accommodate people so that they don't need to go out and carpool and feel that need every day. And so I think our clients, our trade partners, and the craft people themselves are really, really adapting well to this, and they're being very creative. I've gone through the stages of grief, as we all have, about this, and I'm really excited about the future for our business and for the industry as a whole. I think a lot of good things are going to come out of this, and I think a connection to the craft people is going to be stronger than it has in the past, because we're relying on them to keep our businesses moving, and they're relying on us to keep them safe. And I think that connection, while it's been there, it's even more emphasized as a result of this.
Great. Mike, thank you so much. So we're going to now turn to Lori. Lori, you are on mute on your end, but I also want to tell the members in the audience that if you would like to ask questions, at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A function, and you can put your questions, you can write your questions in there, and then I will take those questions and direct them to the appropriate panelists at the time. So Lori, what I would love for you to speak about, if you could, is just kind of the partnership between the GCs and labor, between the trades and the carpenters, and what does that look like, and how has that partnership been going?
Sure. First of all, I want to say thank you for having me and Swinnerton represent this morning. But I will say that health and safety has always been a top priority. I think now more than ever, it's certainly at the forefront of everything we do. And when we talk about health and safety at our job sites, it's not just about for our employees or for our team members, but it's also related to our business partners, to design teams, and also our subcontract trade partners. When we were faced with COVID-19, we immediately put together a task force to put together our COVID-19 response plan. And we certainly worked in conjunction with CDC guidelines, as well as input from our trade partners and our other peers as well, to kind of develop this plan. And we knew that our subcontractor trade partners would be looking to us for leadership and guidance as we navigate these challenging times. And so, we worked diligently with our subcontractor trade partners to help them put together their plans and their site-specific plans. So that was a great process, and we helped walk them through our plan, as well as the process that we went through to put together our plan and the science behind it, so that they could understand what we were trying to accomplish. We've also participated in many roundtables with our trade partners, with our peers, to share best practices and strategies to ensure that everyone on the job sites are working efficiently, but also as safely as possible. It's really been that collaboration, I think, with our trade partners that has really helped during this, extraordinary time. And it's really been a team effort, I would say.
I muted myself. Yeah. We're doing a kangaroo court for staff, that when everyone speaks while muted, they have to pay $1 fine. Anyway, Tim Paulson, I saw, joined us from the San Francisco Secretary of the San Francisco Building Trades. So Tim, good morning. I was hoping that you could speak to, what do you see happening with your workers, the economy, kind of the directives, just kind of what are you hearing from your members about, on the ground, what's been the effect on people with the restriction of the construction?
Thanks, Todd. And I apologize that I was getting on a little bit late. I've been on these Zoom calls every day for weeks now, sheltered in place. I'm actually one of the few I can actually, with all my stuff in terms of data and computers and webinars and phones and what have you, I can actually shelter in place. So I'm going a little bit stir crazy. But anyway, so I'm on this phone, and I'm appreciative to see the carpenters on, and some of our general contractors, Winterton and Nibby and Suffolk and all. And but that being said, there were a few things that I wanted to talk about, because we have 30 unions in the Building Trades Council, and they all have specific industries and specific crafts that are that have different ways to deal with things. I'll just give us a silly example is like the cement masons, for example. Sometimes when there's a big cement pour, I mean, normally if anybody's seen a cement pour, there's usually 30 people just piling all on top of each other trying to get stuff done, and that doesn't exactly fit right into social distancing. So I know that the contractors and the subcontractors and the union are working to make sure that all that social distancing takes place. So my short back of envelope answer is that everybody is dealing with this different. There are unions such as the operating engineers, where so many people are like between I was told maybe 90% of them are they're in cabs, and they're just by nature of their job, they're in social distance, and they have, very few people out of work, according to what I've been told about. But there's other trades that normally on a construction site, a lot of people pile up on top of each other, and people have, because of the commercial not being in the 6 counties here in particular, not being talked about as necessary work, that have just laid people off. And so, we have people that have worked on high rises in San Francisco for 2 or 3 years where nobody's gotten sick, nobody's been injured. And then all of a sudden they're told that they can't work. And it's like, wait, hold on a second here. This has been a safe job for the last 3 years. And yeah, we're all concerned. And believe me, everybody is concerned. And number one concern is the health and safety. And I know that Todd and the team here, that's, mostly what the focus is to talk about, is the health and safety, because we all know that that is the number one priority, despite everything else that is being talked about politically, is to move forward. So people are just really dealing with it. So a lot of folks do have people on the out of work list because of the nature, whether or not it's infrastructure or utilities, and housing above 10%. It's all go, but the commercial stuff has been put together. So it's all over the map, and people we're constantly all day long trying to monitor what's a good job and what's not a good job. People have probably heard, and I don't know if somebody mentioned this earlier, but Governor Newsom just said that the infrastructure on the Alamany overpass, I'm going to take that off of the list and make it necessary work, because there's nobody on the street, and this is frankly going to be the safest time to do some of that infrastructure work. And some people are saying, well, is that necessary work, or is that necessary work? Well, I think everybody in this work thinks that when it comes to commerce, everything is necessary work. That's how things work. We build buildings, we build houses, we build hospitals, we build schools. That's how the economy runs. But we're taking obviously a very quick break to change it. And so we have some dynamics in organized labor, and it's not just the building trades, but it's the entire labor movement when it comes to healthcare workers and hospitality workers and the stage hands, where everybody is out of work because hotels are shut down and what have you. But we are just asking, and I know we did this, and some of you guys were part of this, with the billions of dollars that are being done, with wastewater and Hetchy, as well as power stuff in terms of the infrastructure with the Public Utilities Commission. The building trades and the general contractors and the United Contractors and other contractors got together and put together, a safety plan. And I want to say there are one in many safety plans based on, the job site or the contractor or, everybody that is moving so diligently to take care of this stuff. And that particular plan that was put together, and it was written up by Naomi Kelly, the city administrator, as being something that had of value. And again, this is public sector work, that's privately contracted out, but we're talking about public sector work at the public utilities, which in San Francisco, also bleeds over to, the port and the airport and Muni and the Department of Public Works. That actually got signed off by the health director and is part of the stuff that is moving forward. But we do have some concerns with the health directors in the 6 counties that, God bless them, they were the first ones to, start monitoring this virus, that actually came down and came up with the shelter in place and what have you that people have run with. So the safety part is being taken care of. But we do have some concerns that people are making decisions about construction that the building trades unions, as well as our signatory contractors, aren't necessarily consulted on. And that really, it doesn't just deal with the safety issues, but it has to do with the economic and the ability for our members to take care of themselves. So my long answer is that, some of the trades have a significant amount of people that are out of work that they didn't expect because of this. And then there are some that are really not quite as affected by it. So we're ongoing and we're monitoring this. And I think I'm going to a general overview and leave it there in terms of where we're working. I do want to acknowledge one thing, and I don't know if Cindy or Lori or anybody did. Cassie, I don't know if you've been on yet, but or the brother from Suffolk have mentioned it, but there have been the laborers and the carpenters and the elevator operators and the operating engineers, along with the state building trades, has sent letters to every city and county and the health directors saying that listen, you can't just keep putting your foot on the pedal and stopping stuff. You've got to deal with us, and because we do have safety measures to move forward. So again, this is happening at both a regional and a statewide level, to say nothing about the international, the national stuff, which I've been monitoring with some of my colleagues in New York and Chicago and others, where we're getting reports now in Washington as to how people are dealing with stuff. We have here in the Bay Area, we do actually have the pedal on the brakes, probably more than any other place in the country in terms of the limitations on the work that we are being told that we can do, what is known as necessary work. And so now I am going to end and say that is still a concern of ours in the trades. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. Hey, Augie, if you are still with us, if you can unmute yourself, I just wanted to throw one question at you before I turn to questions from the audience. So Augie Beltran, Director with the Northern California Carpenters, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm wondering, Tim touched on this a little bit, but I was wondering if you get into just like, how are the carpenters and maybe other trades dealing with just the confusion of the different orders, right? Like what the state's saying compared to what the Bay Area is saying, just compared to what other, what's the directives just, sometimes in conflict, sometimes, consistent. Is that something you could speak to a little bit?
Sure, and thank you for having us on. Initially there was a little bit of confusion, but we're really good at communicating and educating. We've been working with our employer associations, UConn, WACA, CEA, AGC, in order to bring some sort of cohesive direction to what's going on. And we have been educating our elected officials. We just recently started putting together tours of union job sites, best practices on how jobs can be run safely. And our international training program created a training course called COVID-19 Preferred Qualification, which we not only imparted to 500,000 carpenters in the United States, but we've shared with the associations and the state building trades so that everyone's on the same page. When we talk to our electeds and we're trying to find the definition of essential, we remind them that hospitals are essential, roads are essential, housing is essential, student housing is essential, research facilities, the tilts that are being built in the South Bay, where all the research, where Gilead is, and groups like that. That's where our work comes from, is we have the opportunity not only to communicate with local elected officials, but we also have the ability to communicate with the governor's office. So when it comes to communicating the definition of essential, I think we've been pretty good at it. We've been pretty good at getting a lot of our people back to work along with our employers and their associations, and it's really been a teamwork effort.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Hey, Lori, so I have a question I'm going to direct towards you. The question is, so it says the new COVID requirements will really increase, general costs. For projects that have already commenced, how are the GCs handling the increased costs? Are they issuing change orders to the developer or absorbing the costs internally? So let's start with the easy stuff. How about that? Yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, internally, we have put together, we've identified a couple of project managers to assist. They're kind of a task force to work with project teams. Our first step is really to try to identify the impact. So I think it's not going to be a one size fits all. We're going to have to review the prime contract requirements and review what our entitlement may be. But the first thing is really trying to identify what the potential impacts are. And we recognize that sometimes it's very easy to quantify the standalone costs. For example, an additional laborer who's doing the disinfection and sanitizing, like that's kind of its own standalone, it's easy. We recognize there's going to be some productivity impacts as it relates to labor, and those are going to be difficult to quantify. So we're going through right now and trying to work with our trade partners to identify what some of those baseline assumptions were, so that we can best address those. So again, we're not taking a one size fits all. We're going to review the prime contract requirements and identify the cost impacts. The feedback we've been hearing from our clients has been, we think it needs to be fair. We want to feel like we're being treated fairly, and that everyone is recognizing that there's really no fault in all of this, and that everyone is trying to move forward so that it's the most safe situation, but at the same time that we are all contributing our fair share as it relates to the additional costs.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to direct the next question to either Paul or Cindy. Whichever one of you think wants to answer is fine. So the questioner says, what you're doing to keep workers safe is very impressive. What are you doing to inform both the regulators and the general public so they can make informed decisions about allowing construction to proceed? And Paul, you are on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Okay. So what the CEA has done is they've held weekly conferences where invited all their members and had the professionals go through the guidance which has been given by the authorities, both the state and local, as well as the CDC, and primarily focused on worker safety, but also dealing with such issues as the regulatory and lobbying efforts to open up construction. The joint efforts between the union contractors and labor has been phenomenal, right? And so that's resulted in a number of letters being sent to public officials, both the mayors of various cities, as well as to the board of supervisors in the local counties, identifying that, number one, we believe in worker safety as a priority. And number two, that we believe we can build now with the safe practices we've installed in a safe manner. We continue to work with the city officials and the government agencies to show them the data that shows that we've had infinitesimal amount of COVID reported on the job sites. And these aren't caused by being on the job site. They're people coming to the job site with the virus compared to the number of hours that have been spent working. We spent, the CEA members and their partners, hundreds of thousands of man hours every month. And the amount of COVID cases reported so far has been, you can do it on one hand. So we're trying to educate people in terms of the safe practices that we now have, and the ability to keep the workers safe on the job and put individuals back to work.
Thank you, Paul. That's great. So we've had a couple of questions about safety protocols for occupied rehabs. So what safety, Cassie, is that is there a question you could answer? Is that what are the protocols? When I think the question is like if you're rehabbing a house that's occupied, and that, so what are the safety protocols for that?
Well, the safety protocols don't change much from job site to job site, but we do have some rehab projects where we have to deal with tenants in the same space, right? And so that generally just takes a lot more patience by our workers to maintain social distancing, really, and to put up signage for the tenants to understand where they can go and where they can't go, to be more patient about waiting for an elevator, for example, to transfer materials because they're sharing an elevator in some instances with tenants and needing to take their turns and maintain that social distancing. And so the actual protocols don't change a lot. They just kind of get expanded to take in a broader population under consideration. On that note, we actually have had, in one case, a job site where the owner just decided, because of the tenants being an older population, where we ceased work at that particular location because it was safer for the tenants in place, which was totally understandable. And so we've also worked with our clients to make those decisions in terms of when is it safe in a tenant situation and when we need to desist in a particular unit and move on to another unit or another building, so to speak.
And Mike, so Tony Rodriguez, who is with the Sprinkler Fitters, he said, I know some like Nibby are already requiring cloth masks. Is that required for everyone on the job site or just people who are working on the job site?
You know, we're actually following CDC pretty closely. So I mean, not very pretty closely directly. So we are going to require face masks on projects effectively. You know, immediately we have required that. The issue where it starts to get a little dicey right now is that when you start talking about respirators and things that are more advanced than just a cloth face covering, you get into that being a requirement that the site-specific safety plans for the trade partners actually includes language around the use of respirators and how to train for that and how to fit for that. So we will certainly see as more N95 and KN95 masks become available for the general public and for our industry. You're going to see a shift towards that, which again will require that we make sure that both the trade partners and our teams are trained in how to fit for those respirators and how to use those respirators effectively. I think you're also going to see, we're seeing now full face shields for work that's within 6 feet. You know, again, those are part of the pre-task plans that Cassie was referring to. If we know we're going to be installing, you know, a window panel or something that is going to require people to work within 6 feet, then we're asking, you know, both the trade partner to develop and for us to essentially approve what that pre-task plan would be.
Sounds good. And Cindy, I'm going to throw this question to you. Someone asked, how do you maintain social distance in an elevator? Could it be reduced to one person? You're on mute, Cindy. There you go.
Okay. Yeah, the efficiency with the elevators has been significantly reduced just because you have the operator in there and then maybe 2-3 people, and that's it. It's hard to maintain the social distancing. So I've seen pictures of a person in the 3 corners. I've seen pictures with people in each corner, just on the opposite ends. So I haven't, 2 to 3 people, what I've seen based on the size of the elevators.
Okay, thanks. So I'm sorry, yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's also important to note a reminder that construction man hoists tend to be much larger than your typical elevator in like a high rise or an apartment building. So the construction hoists have more space in them that can accommodate 2 or 3 people within 6, with social distancing.
And I think this is Alex Marchese, which I hope I'm saying his name correctly, who I believe is a ledge aide in Councilmember McElhaney's office in Oakland. I think he's really kind of asking the question that's kind of on everybody's mind is that, so what, he asked, so, let me just read exactly. What do you all think about allowing continuing work on only residential projects with 10% affordable housing on site? I think I would maybe ask the question a slightly different way. Is everyone confident that construction for multifamily housing can continue to move forward in a safe manner? Right? And what are the appropriate protocols or steps that need to be put in place to ensure that construction is happening in that safe manner? What are the checks and balances that should be there to kind of make sure that it's happening the same? Because I'm going to assume that we're all going to say, like, yes, it can move forward in a safe manner. So then what are the checks that need to be there that it's actually happening in the manner that you are all proposing that it moves forward? So I'm going to just kind of do a quick, I'm going to let's try to keep 30 seconds to a minute each. I'm just going to go around the room. So let me start with you, Cassie, if that's okay, because you're to the right of my screen, so I can keep track.
Are you talking about checks from government agencies?
Sure, that's what I would say is the regulators, making sure that the regulators are able to do that, that the regulators are checking off and saying, yes, this is actually what is happening on the job site in this manner, right? And so that it's being done safely.
Well, I think part of that answer is what has already been done. Like the County of San Francisco, one of their shelter-in-place orders related specifically to construction required us to submit all of our guidelines and to submit our plan to them, to check out, to show them, okay, these are the ways that we're doing it. And those had to be site specific to show, this measure, this is how we're implementing it. And that measure you want, this is how we're implementing it. And so I think some of that's already being done in San Francisco to ensure that the work that's in place now is meeting all the requirements that have been put in place. And of course, what's nice about that too is, those are minimum standards and they allow for us to also obviously let them know all the extra stuff that we're doing above and beyond what they have requested. And so I think it's just all about communication and continuing to let the agencies know what we're doing, how we're doing it, inviting them to the job sites if they want to come see it for themselves. We're also taking pictures every day to document and show how it's being done. So if there is ever any question, we can show, well, this is the way we did it. This is what it looked like. It wasn't just lip service. It really did happen. So also having the documentation in place with our daily safety inspections, which we've always done. COVID measures are just an additional item that we look at as we walk the job sites and do our inspections and make sure that all the measures are in place.
Great.
Which,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize. I thought you stopped. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I went over my 30 seconds. So next.
Okay, Lori.
So yes, we are confident that construction can continue in a safe manner. I think the steps to that are, one, having the site-specific safety COVID-19 safety plans in place. I think the second step is, as other folks talked about this morning, and that is having your designated COVID-19 designated safety person to ensure that our teams are in compliance with that site-specific plan. And our communication to our teams, we have a COVID-19 call every day at 5 p.m. with our project teams. And our communication has been, and it's been that communication in San Francisco, that building inspectors will fine, or they are going to identify and point out if we are not in compliance. So we are constantly reminding our teams every day around this idea of the importance of being in compliance with our plans. So I think that if you have all of those things in place, those are kind of that's kind of the foundation for ensuring that we're proceeding in a very, very safe manner.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, I would say, I agree. I think we should all be really proud of the Bay Area's kind of leadership across the country for this, because the flattening of the curve, which is clearly occurring, should, make us all feel very comfortable that the steps that we can take on our job sites in conjunction with what's generally happening in the region is very favorable. So yes, in terms of how we're going to monitor ourselves, I think it's maybe important to note, as an industry, this is generally the case. Our safety officers don't report to operations people. They report to the national heads of health and safety. So they are really very independent of a project team. So that is done for a very deliberate reason, and it helps for this situation as well. We also have been talking to hygienists and third-party hygienists, and the possibility of getting them out on our job sites on a fairly regular basis. If you ever had a water damage issue on a project, and it's common practice to bring a hygienist out to clean the air and check to make sure that the condition is appropriate to start to put drywall back in. So those types of things all can be done as well as part of moving forward.
Great, thank you. Tim, Tim Paulson, would you like to comment on the question?
Yeah, the answer is yes. Our members are trained in health and safety, and they're being trained on the upscale of the COVID-19 protocols. So the answer is yes.
Great. And Paul?
One of the other parties in the checks and balances we found is our union partners, right? Because now with the training involved, they're very aware of what's required. And in a limited number of cases, we've had contact from the unions saying, hey, we want this situation or circumstance addressed, or can you explain how you're protecting the worker in this circumstance? And so labor's out there helping us, making sure that we're in compliance. And it's really a cooperative effort. It's an amazing time in terms of the joint singleness of purpose, keep a worker safety paramount.
Great. And Cindy, I'm going to give you the last word on this. If you have anything that you would like to add.
No, I was just, I just want to echo Paul's sentiment in that labor really is a partner, and that our contractors are signatory. And so labor, if there is an issue or concern, they can talk to their labor representative, their carpenter rep, their labor rep, operating engineer rep, and they can bring those issues to the forefront.
So, we're right up against 10 o'clock, and we would like to be an organization that keeps our word. We promised everyone 9 to 10 o'clock. I just have to say that on behalf of the Housing Action Coalition, it is it is moments like these where it's just like we are so proud to have members that are just working cooperatively and in the best interest of the people who are on the ground actually building the actual the housing, and doing things in such a thoughtful and safety first manner that it's days like this that I say, like, you guys make my job so much easier to go out and advocate for really responsible organizations. So thank you all for the hard work. It's so obvious the amount of time and energy and thoughtfulness that you've put in to making sure that these construction sites are safe, and building shelter for people continues and will continue to be such an important and righteous endeavor that I thank you all for the work. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and we look forward to seeing housing continue to get built. To the audience, if anyone has questions that did not get answered, please email them to me or Corey, and we will certainly pass them on and get an answer to you. Hope everyone has a good Friday and a good weekend ahead of you. Take care.